Welcome back to another deep dive. To all of you listening right now, you are the learner, and we are so thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Oh, it's going to be great. So I want you to imagine for a second that you are standing in the center of a room that is designed specifically to make you feel small.
Right, like deliberately intimidated.
Exactly. Not physically small, but conceptually small. Above you is this immense vaulted ceiling painted with gods.
Oh, wow.
And all around you, there are these massive, flawless sheets of mirror catching the glare of the afternoon sun. You are meant to be overwhelmed.
You're meant to feel the crush of absolute state power.
Yes. Now blink and transport yourself thousands of miles away to another room. Here, the walls aren't these grand sweeping plains of imported marble.
Are doing something entirely different.
Right. They're entirely encrusted in millions of tiny hand-cut fragments of mirror, shaped into these complex geometric flowers and stars.
Catching the light like a shattered diamond.
It's stunning. Both of these spaces represent the absolute pinnacle of royal wealth, but they are speaking completely different geopolitical and architectural languages.
It really is the ultimate study in contrast. On one hand, you have the Palace of Versailles in France, and on the other, you have Golestan Palace in Iran.
Right.
Both are legendary royal interiors, and both are famous for their staggering use of mirrors to project wealth and authority. But if you walk into Golestan expecting just a Persian Versailles, you're going to completely misread the room.
You'll misread the culture and the historical intent.
Absolutely.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We've got a fascinating stack of sources today. We are looking at official architectural descriptions of both palaces alongside these incredibly detailed UNESCO World Heritage records.
There's so much to unpack in those documents.
There really is. We are setting out to explore how two entirely different cultures construct this idea of magnificence and how they weaponize architecture to project power.
Yeah, weaponize is a good word for it. Because while both are royal interiors of immense value, their definitions of luxury are, they're speaking entirely different languages.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand these spaces, we can't just look at the shiny things on the walls, right?
No, not at all. You have to look at how the buildings physically force you to walk through them. Because looking at these two spaces side by side reveals the totally different ways humanity likes to show off.
Right, layout is everything. So before we look at the decor, let's talk about that layout. Architecture is never neutral.
It really isn't. It's a tool of power, and layout is, it's the first weapon drawn. At Versailles, that power is highly centralized, and it is overwhelmingly monumental.
It's massive.
Huge. When you visit Versailles, the building demands to be read as a single, giant palace block. The architecture is organized around what we call an axial order.
An axial order. So what does that actually mean for the person walking through it?
It means you are forced into a rigorous, highly controlled procession. You walk in a straight line, room after room after room, along a central axis.
Right, so it's not like a casual stroll through the grounds.
No, it is a march.
The official descriptions of Versailles really emphasize the king's state apartment, which is this incredibly prestigious series of 7 distinct rooms. And those 7 rooms weren't just for lounging around, They were meant specifically for official acts. You were walking through a choreographed sequence.
And we have to ask why it was designed that way.
Right, why force everyone into that line?
Well, the French absolute monarchy, particularly under Louis XIV, was obsessed with taming a historically rebellious nobility.
Ah, so you bring them all to you.
Exactly. The architectural solution was to bring everyone under one roof and dictate their physical movement. The building is a machine designed to pull you toward the monarch.
Wow, okay, now take that rigid, monumental procession and contrast it with Golestan Palace during the Qajar period, which spans roughly from the late 18th to the early 20th century.
Right, completely different approach.
Yeah.
Golestan is not a single imposing block that you march through linearly. UNESCO actually defines it as a walled palace complex.
A complex, not a single block.
Yeah, it's an assembly of distinct named buildings scattered strategically within this massive garden enclosure.
So if you're trying to picture this right now, don't picture a giant European manor house. Picture an incredibly lush, fortified oasis.
That is exactly the right image. You have highly specialized structures serving different functions in different climates.
Like the marble throne room?
Yes. the Takhti Marmar. It's this spectacular marble throne room designed for open-air, traditional Persian audiences.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the Emirat Tadjir. This building is just a brilliant architectural response to the environment. It utilizes these towering wind catchers to literally pull cooling breezes down into the halls during the blistering summer heat.
That's amazing. So the architecture adapts to the geography.
Right. It adapts to the specific needs of the Qajar court rather than forcing a single massive structure onto the landscape.
I love thinking about it through the lens of human behavior. Versailles is essentially a funnel.
Oh, a funnel. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Right. It's designed to physically squeeze thousands of nobles, diplomats, and servants into one focal point, the king's presence. But Golestan is more like a net. It captures different aspects of court life in these specialized pavilions. You wander through this walled treasure garden, and each distinct building has its own unique flavor.
Its own climate control, its own interior logic.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is how effectively both layouts project authority, despite being mechanical opposites.
Yeah.
Versailles uses sheer scale and a forced ceremonial sequence to project this incredibly centralized, inescapable monarchical power.
The building essentially shouts, all roads, all rooms lead to the king.
Right. But Golestan's geopolitical weight lies in its curation. It's about bringing together diverse structures, managing that harsh climate with elegance, and assembling incredibly rich interiors into one unified complex.
It's a gathering of exquisite jewels rather than one massive, heavy crown.
Exactly. And that physical movement, whether you are being funneled or navigating a net of pavilions, it directly changes what your eyes are doing once you get inside.
Because Versailles forces you into that rigid, straight-line march, the art on the walls has no choice but to conform to that momentum.
Right, it has to push you forward.
You aren't meant to stop and stare at a single tile. The visual experience is entirely dictated by the architectural rhythm.
You aren't just looking at a pretty wall in Versailles. You are looking at vaulted ceilings, massive marble pilasters, and heavy gilded bronze that frame your forward progress.
Everything serves the room's formal, physical framework.
Take the Hall of Mirrors. The official site notes how it sits perfectly between the king's and queen's apartments as this monumental gallery. Above you is a sweeping multi-panel painted ceiling by Charles Lebrun.
The art doesn't exist just to be beautiful, does it?
No, it exists to glorify the king's reign and to literally point you down the hall.
But then you look at the UNESCO descriptions for those Qajar period rooms at Golestan. Because you are in a specialized pavilion rather than a marching gallery, you actually have the time to linger.
You can actually stop and look.
Right. The awe doesn't come from massive marble columns pushing you along. It comes from intense, almost overwhelming surface brilliance. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
UNESCO specifically praises Golestan for its outstanding universal value because the Qajar dynasty successfully absorbed European motifs and technologies, but they blended them entirely with earlier Persian crafts.
It's such a unique fusion.
You're seeing dense mosaic tilework, elaborate pictorial wall painting, and intricate stained glass.
And, the Qajar Shahs were highly aware of the changing geopolitical landscape. They were interacting with European diplomats traveling to the West.
So incorporating those motifs wasn't just an accident.
Not at all. It was a deliberate signal of modernity and global awareness. But, as you pointed out, they didn't just copy the West.
They made it their own.
Right. They applied that global awareness to the fine-grained artisanal intensity of Persian surface decoration. So a French palace impresses you by orchestrating the room itself, the volume, the sequence, the scale. Golestan impresses you by orchestrating the surface.
Okay, wait, I need to challenge that.
Sure, go ahead.
Because the thing everyone knows about both of these places is the mirrors. Versailles has the Hall of Mirrors. Golestan is famous for its mirror-encrusted halls.
Right, the mirrors are iconic.
So if Golestan is supposed to be the ultimate flex of wealth and modernity, why are they using shattered, tiny pieces of mirror?
The budget constraint argument.
Right. I mean, from a purely economic standpoint, cutting up glass seems like a way to hide the fact that you can't manufacture or import massive, flawless French mirrors. Is this famous Persian mirrorwork actually just a historical budget constraint or like a logistical compromise disguised as high art?
It's a very logical counter-argument. And historically, yes, the journey of mirrors along the Silk Road was fraught with breakage. Glass broke a lot.
I can imagine.
But to view Persian mirrorwork merely as a compromise is to completely misunderstand the medium. They are not the same art form. Not even close. Let's look at the machinery that reflects here.
Okay, lay it out.
At Versailles, the Hall of Mirrors features 357 large mirror plates organized meticulously across 17 arches.
That is a lot of glass.
It is. And in the 17th century, France couldn't even make those plates. They had to engage in literal industrial espionage. They smuggled master glassmakers out of Venice just to achieve it.
Wait, really? Industrial espionage for mirrors?
Oh yeah. It was an industrial and economic flex of the highest order.
So it's a grand architectural installation meant to prove France could out-manufacture the rest of the world. It's about large, flawless sheets of reflective glass.
Right. It's a formal gallery composition.
Yeah.
Now let's look at Golestan. The mirror decoration there belongs to a specific, highly evolved Persian craft called Ayeneh-kari.
Ayeneh-kari.
Yes. UNESCO defines this not as hanging large mirrors, but as the handcrafted decoration of ceilings, walls, domes, and columns using tiny cut pieces of mirrors.
So it's not just broken glass glued to a wall.
Far from it. These fragments are shaped into complex geometric patterns or organic floral forms, and then set at precise angles before being glued directly onto the plaster.
Wow. So it's essentially a mosaic, but made of reflection.
A massively complex mosaic.
Yeah.
Ayeneh-kari isn't just about cutting glass because you don't have a big sheet. It combines multiple distinct skills. You have specialized geometric design rooted in centuries of Persian mathematics, intricate mirror cutting, custom plastering, painting, and setting. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you realize these aren't just different sizes of mirrors we're talking about.
They're fundamentally different visual logics.
Exactly. Versailles is taking large mirrored plates and integrating them into a monumental gallery to prove industrial dominance. Golestan is taking thousands of tiny reflective elements to create a patterned, textured surface decoration that aligns with a deeply rooted cultural tradition of geometric art.
That makes so much sense. Walking into Golestan and expecting to see a miniaturized version of the Hall of Mirrors is like walking into a painting gallery and expecting to see sculptures. You've completely missed the point of the medium.
Completely missed it.
And because these mirrors are crafted so differently, they actually change the physics of how light behaves in the room.
Yes, the interaction with light is entirely intentional in both spaces, but the goals are polar opposites.
Yeah.
Let's go back to those 17 arches in Versailles. The Hall of Mirrors was explicitly designed so that those large mirror plates directly face the 17 massive windows overlooking the gardens.
Oh, so it's a direct reflection.
Exactly. When the afternoon sunlight pours in, it hits those large mirrors and is amplified. It bounces back and forth, interacting with the gilded bronze and the crystal chandeliers.
Wow.
The goal is to reflect space, to make the long gallery feel infinitely wide and filled with captured sunlight.
It's amplification. I love that analogy of a massive, perfectly aimed spotlight. Versailles is illuminating a grand, blinding stage for the king to parade down.
It really is blinding on a sunny day.
It's designed so a visiting diplomat has to literally squint against the majesty of the French state.
Yeah, you can't even look at it directly.
But standing in Golestan, based on how the angles of Ayeneh-kari work, that light isn't being amplified in a straight line, it's being shattered.
Yes, it is fragmented reflection. When light from the chandeliers or the stained glass hits those thousands of precisely angled cut mirror surfaces in Golestan, it doesn't bounce back as a single cohesive image of the room.
It breaks apart.
Exactly. UNESCO's documentation highlights how this craft brightens a space through multiple cut surfaces, atomizing the light rather than reflecting it off a few large planes.
Atomizing the light. I love that phrase. If you are standing in one of the grand halls of Golestan, it's like being inside a kaleidoscope.
Or like being trapped inside a beautifully shattered diamond where the light is completely broken up into a million glowing, sparkling pieces.
Think about how that changes the psychological experience of a visiting dignitary. Versailles gives you a harsh, unblinking reflection of centralized state power.
And Golestan immerses you in a glowing, almost mystical atmosphere.
It's incredible, and this profound difference in material reality and artistic intent leads to one of the most fascinating challenges for both of these palaces today, the conservation conundrum.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Because these masterpieces are built so differently and capture light so differently, they also break differently.
right. If you have a leaky roof or structural settling over a few centuries, how do you actually fix these places? I imagine the headaches for the conservation teams are completely unique to each site.
They really are. Let's look at the macroscopic problem at Versailles first. The challenge there is all about preserving a strict total composition.
Because it's a single unit.
Exactly. Remember, the Hall of Mirrors is a monumental ensemble. It relies on the uninterrupted harmony of those large mirrors, the painted vaults by Lebrun, the gilded sculpture, the marble, and those long architectural perspectives.
So if one thing is off...
It ruins the whole effect.
Right.
If you have a flaw in one element, or if a mirror plate is replaced with modern glass that lacks the slight imperfections of 17th century Venetian techniques, it ruins the optical illusion of the entire room.
Because the whole room is a single machine.
Yeah.
If one gear is out of place, the entire 50-foot perspective is just ruined.
Right. The official records from the Palace of Versailles detail major restoration efforts that are entirely focused on recovering the historical volumes, the specific lighting effects, and those grand perspectives.
It sounds like a massive industrial-scale preservation effort.
It is. But at Golestan, the conservation challenge is microscopic.
Because of the tiny mirrors.
Right. Because the art is Ayeneh-kari, these tiny hand-cut pieces. The physical damage can often be treated locally. You don't necessarily have to pull back a grand architectural perspective to fix a corner of a pavilion.
Which, I mean, this sounds easier on paper. You just fix the little patch of mosaic that fell off the plaster.
It sounds easier until you realize what the repair is actually dependent on.
Oh, right, the people.
Exactly. You don't just need historical glass to fix a wall at Golestan. You need the human being who knows how to manipulate it. The repair is completely reliant on preserving what UNESCO recognizes as intangible cultural heritage.
Wow. The craft itself is the artifact.
Precisely that. You need that highly specialized, centuries-old craft knowledge, the ability to calculate the complex geometric pattern in your head, cut the tiny mirrors perfectly by hand without shattering them.
Which I can't even imagine doing.
Right, and then you have to mix the exact traditional plaster and set the mosaic at the correct angles to catch the light.
So if that traditional skill set dies out, if the master artisans stop taking apprentices, you cannot repair the palace, no matter how much money or raw glass you have.
Exactly. This raises an important question about what we value in preservation. What is harder to save? The physical, structural integrity of a massive 17th century architectural machine, or a fragile, intangible human skill passed down through generations?
That is such a wild dilemma to think about. I want you, listening right now, to imagine being the head of preservation for one of these sites. Which high-stakes restoration job would you rather tackle?
It's a tough choice.
Right. Orchestrating the industrial undertaking of sourcing and installing a massive, historically accurate plate of glass to ensure a 300-year-old optical illusion still works perfectly down a hallway.
Or trying to track down one of the few living master artisans who still holds the ancient knowledge of cutting a mirror into a perfect, dime-sized geometric flower.
Both are terrifying in their own way, and both are essential to keeping human history alive.
They pose entirely different conservation problems because, as we've seen, their art is organized differently from the ground up, from the way the buildings are laid out to the way the walls are decorated to the way the light hits your eye.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We've walked through the monumental axial funnel of Versailles. We've wandered the walled, diverse net of pavilions at Golestan. We've seen how Versailles orchestrates the rigid framework of a room to push you toward a king, while Golestan orchestrates dense, brilliant surfaces to immerse you in a climate-controlled jewel box.
If we synthesize the takeaways from our architectural and UNESCO sources, the clearest conclusion is this. Both are supreme examples of royal interiors, but their values are rooted in entirely different achievements.
Right.
Versailles is valued internationally as a monument to scale, state choreography, and monarchical centralization. It is a 17th century decorative powerhouse designed to dominate.
And Golstan's value isn't about matching that sheer size. It is definitively not a Persian Versailles. Its value lies in craft intensity.
Exactly. It's a masterpiece of Qajar court culture that brilliantly synthesized indigenous Persian crafts like that breathtaking mirror mosaic with incoming European influences.
To signal a modern, globally aware dynasty.
Right. To put it simply, Versailles dazzles through the forced orchestration of space. Golestan dazzles through the meticulous orchestration of surfaces and light.
It really is a testament to how human beings can look at the exact same basic ingredients, wealth, glass, paint, stone, and cook up completely different definitions of what it means to be magnificent.
It truly is.
It proves Golestan stands entirely alone, speaking its own beautiful, atomized aesthetic language. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've spent all this time exploring how these historic palaces used dizzying mirrors, monumental funnels, and shattered light to make visitors feel a very specific way about royal authority.
They wanted to make you feel small or overwhelmed or entirely mesmerized by the machinery of the state.
Exactly. Architecture shapes how we feel about power. So, if that's true, how do modern seats of power manipulate our feelings today?
That's a great question.
When you walk into a plain, towering glass and steel skyscraper or step inside a heavy, brutalist concrete government building, what are those walls trying to tell you?
Are they trying to intimidate you? Reassure you?
How are they trying to make you feel compared to the dazzling historic palaces of the past? Are they trying to make you feel transparent, invisible?
It's definitely something to think about next time you walk into a bank or a courthouse.
Keep questioning the spaces around you. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.